to call our meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. I'll have the clerk please call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Treasurer Horning?
Here.
Clerk Hopkins here. Trustee Kalani?
Here.
Supervisor Fountain?
Here.
Trustee Harper?
Here.
Trustee Germain?
Yes, here.
Trustee Petrucci?
Here.
We have quorum of the board. We also have present Township Manager James Wickman.
Thank you. Item number 4 is approval of our meeting agenda.
So moved.
Support. Motion by Treasurer Horning, second by Trustee Harper. Any discussion? Doing nothing. Being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Number 5 is call to the public. Anybody that call to the public tonight? Nobody that call to the public. We'll move to item number 6, which is approval of our consent agenda. So moved. Support. Motion by Trustee Germain, second by Trustee Kalani. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. This evening we have no pending business. We have no new business. We'll go right to board reports. And thank you, whoever gave me the updated...
Oh, it got some bigger font.
Bigger font. Thank you, whoever did that. And this is our first meeting in October. We'll start with Clerk Hopkins.
Thank you. I just would like to remind everybody that we have an election coming up 4 weeks from yesterday, and we have absentee ballots available in the clerk's office. You can obtain one by contacting us to get an application, or you can also find the application on our website under heartlandtwp.com under the elections tab. So you can, it's a fillable form. You can fill it out, print it off, sign it, send it in, or email it to us. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Treasurer Horning?
Just that the farmers market is still in operation. I think some people think we close, and they're open through the last week of October. Squash, and pumpkins, and corn stalks, and all kinds of great things. So it's open Saturday 9 to 1.
Thank you. Trustee Kalani?
Last night, there was the Road and Pathways Task Force, some folks from that task force that the township established several months ago met to talk about, the upcoming road millage, and myself and Larry Hopkins attended that meeting. And one of the things that we talked about was probably having a community forum, maybe October, I think we were looking at October 23rd, Larry? October 22nd. If we could put something like that together as an informational forum for residents to have one last opportunity to come in and talk about, what the pros and cons associated with the proposed road millage. I think that would be something we would want to undertake. I don't know if we need to have township staff facilitate that. I think it might be more grassroots facilitated, but we could probably talk about that a little bit more. Larry, do you have anything to add on that?
Well, I just will add that I called Mike Sedlak today. If you remember, when we started looking at this whole initiative, we looked at Green Oak's model, what they did, and we tried to, take the good points they did. And I asked him, because they did a November election as well, 2012. And I asked them, did you guys have anything between your board's approval of ballot language and the election? And he said they had several informational meetings in that time span to hear and present what they were going to do. He said it was important for their residents to know what roads were going to get done, and he felt identifying that to them and making it clear to them was very helpful in their effort to get that.
So have you, as the administrative committee, talked about maybe doing something more than just that one one day? In light of that?
We hadn't talked about any specific day. We do meet tomorrow.
Okay.
And we can definitely bring that up. And
I think it would be good to kind of, at least before the election, at least have people have an opportunity to ask questions, talk about what roads are going to be, and how they're going to be improved, and what's going to be improved. And I think it's just important to know if what the plan is, should the millage get passed.
If I can, just going into that, get the board's consensus on having, that type of meeting is either going to be a township sponsored, it could be, the format can be all over the place however you want it. It could be wide open for anybody and everybody to speak on either side of the issue. If that's the case, is that what we're looking for? Is it want to incorporate it into the next board meeting? You'd rather have it the next night?
did you explore having it at the actual meeting and have it presented? Would that be or did they?
I myself, I can only speak for myself on this. I think the township should have an informational meeting, not telling people to come out and vote one way or another, but, get it out to the public, to the press, to the papers, that we're going to have an informational meeting to inform people about the plan, and I think we need to facilitate that meeting, because if it's just left
fine.
open forum,
No,
I
I
don't
think
know that
Bill's
it will.
just asking on the same night of the board
On the same
meeting.
night, or specific?
I'd do it on a different night myself.
Or both nights. We're already here at the board meeting. Somebody can't make it Tuesday,
Yeah, I think we could do both nights.
Tuesday or Wednesday.
Larry, I think we could have two opportunities for people to come in, one to express their points of view before the board and kind of walk through the plan there, and then the next
Other way,
night,
more informal.
again, I agree with you. I have no one way or the other, whether we have the DPW or somebody facilitate that meeting, or the township manager, or one of us to facilitate that meeting on the 22nd. But I think it'd be good to have multiple meetings. I would agree with Mike Sedlak. I think it's just important to have the people understand just what's going to happen should this millage get adopted.
So we'll add it to our next board agenda as informational,
As well as the 22nd?
as well as the...
And publicize both dates as well.
Okay. And then somebody, either through the task force or through staff, will facilitate the second evening?
We can, we could follow a similar format to what we did before. I can give a brief overview of it. Usually it's a lot of quick Q&A.
Yep.
That's fine.
Okay. Do you need a formal motion for that second meeting?
If the board's in agreement on that consensus, we can...
To be an official board meeting?
Yeah, we'd have to, because we probably most of
Yeah,
here.
probably.
Okay, so we post that as a second meeting then, 7 o'clock? 7 o'clock? This is fine, okay.
I have nothing else.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Germain?
Just a couple of quick things. With some paint donations from one of the local paint stores, the Hero Center, Teen Center is going to be repainting the rec room with some stripes and some modern colors that the kids have helped pick out. And, of course, we've got approval from the township to proceed with that, but just wanted to let everyone know about that. And then secondly, in an upcoming report from our DPW director, he's going to provide more details, but for those that from the community that do live near Bullard Road, you may have noticed this past summer a bunch of large trees coming down and other things like that, and the previous owner of the property on the south end of the lake had been very uncooperative with the Livingston County Drain Commission in trying to repair the dam and maintain it so it didn't flood and so on. Well, he eventually sold the property to two different parties. The subdivision has purchased the dam itself and has started to make repairs and got approval of the DEQ, so that's all good things. And then the southern half of the property, which actually joins our park property, has been purchased by a nature conservancy, and they now have an entranceway with a little pathway off of Bullard Lake into the property. And someday, we could connect to the parkland that we own back to Bullard Road.
That'd be great.
So Mr. West will be providing further details in one of his future reports, but I just wanted the public to know that the improvements to the dam have been approved by the, and when I'm talking about the dam, it's not just the part where the bridge is. The part that leaks is
Yeah.
the earthen part that's primarily made of sand and tree roots. It's not the best thing for holding water. That's all.
Is the Land Conservancy property open to the public, or
Yes.
what is the protocol with that?
They've got a sign right along the side of the road and a pathway that goes into the wetlands.
Okay. Wow. So it's open to the public?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you. Trustee Harper?
No report.
Trustee Petrucci?
No report.
I have no report this evening. Move on to Manager Wickman.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I did have a few things worth highlighting. Did want to bring to your attention that we have decided to end our pursuit of the Safe Routes to School grant. If you recall, when SEMCOG was here, they did mention this as well. The Safe Routes to School and the TAP funding programs are both the same pot of money, and if we were to get awarded a Safe Routes to School grant, that would work against us in an effort to get a TAP. TAP has a better opportunity, more flexibility, and so just to make you aware that we're going to put our focus on the TAP grant for...
Can you, what is that?
That's
just for that transportation?
Transportation Alternative Program, maybe? But it's for sidewalks, streetscapes, outside of your basic road improvements. They've got a special program for those types of improvements. And so we think there's plenty of opportunity for that, whether it be along M59 or is probably the most likely candidate for that. So just wanted to call your attention to that. Also, an update on the SAD 200, wanted to make you aware of something that's come to light for us. Genesee County and Livingston County are now finally getting wrapped up everything that was in the original interjurisdictional agreement, Genesee County sewer ordinance update, Livingston County sewer ordinance update. Through that process, it's been, we've identified that Genesee County's standard is 300 foot from the edge of right-of-way. And we, through those agreements and master operating agreement, that's what we're beholden to. So we had started looking at just the state minimum 200 foot from the line to the structure. Genesee County's standard is 300 foot from the edge of right-of-way to the structure, a much broader standard, and so we've started looking at what additional properties could potentially be pulled into that, and as soon as I have that, I'll let you know. Just wanted to plant the seed. That's something we'll have to talk about. I don't know that it'll change too much for us, because we have taken a passive enforcement stance on it, that, they'll just have to connect when the septic fails. It will be, for those, a number of them are going to be ones that are on the other side of 59, and there could be some expense there for them for getting under. That was something we were trying to find a way to avoid. I don't think we can. So more to come on that. I just wanted to make you aware of that. Good news, we were awarded our third wellhead protection grant from DEQ. There's more information in Mr. West's operational report that's been helpful to us. Did also want to, you may have, in case you didn't catch it, the last couple times it's mentioned, Lake Tyrone Lake Improvement Board does have some petitions that are being circulated for an additional project. So that petition comes here first and to Tyrone Township's board, and then those boards have to pass a resolution to go to Lake Improvement Board to undertake that project, just to let you know that could be coming down the pipe. Parks Task Force had their first meeting last week and was well attended. We have some more appointments to make to that. Unfortunately, didn't have them all, the remainder ones for this agenda. Expect to see those on the next agenda. I did want to make you aware of something that just came to my attention today, or our attention today. The Ore Valley Drive project, the contractor is ready to go. The contractor has been in discussion with the engineer on Ore Valley Drive with the weather, the cold weather, below average weather we're having now, and the forecast for the next 10 days. There's a recommendation on the table that maybe they might want to wait until next spring to get optimal performance out of that road improvement. So Mr. West is going to be in contact with the residents. He had just met with them last night, and everybody was as pleased with where that was going, and try to gauge, we'll put it in their court. If they want to do it now, knowing what the recommendation from the contractor is, they can certainly do it, and we'll be happy to do it. Or we can do it in the spring. If we do it in the spring, contractor said they'll fix the potholes, they'll keep the price, all that stuff. But just wanted to make you aware of that we'll be looking for the resident input on that. And then just wanted to remind you, we do have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission on October 23rd, Thursday. So that would be a regular meeting on the 21st, board meeting on the 22nd, joint meeting on the 23rd, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That one is confirmed for 6:30 on Thursday, the 23rd. And also just wanted to acknowledge that there's some interest in energy growing around some sort of a winter fest, maybe in January, maybe out at Heritage Park. There's a number of partners that have demonstrated interest in sponsorship. That's just starting to come together, so more to come on that. There's a number of people excited and energized around that. And then there will be a mailer going out throughout the township on the Safer Roads millage, pointing them towards, the website. Whether or not we can maybe put those meeting dates on there, I'll be checking into. So, a lot of highlights, but I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Toll miles can change. That's right.
There's no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go on to our informational discussion items. The SEMCOG membership was brought to the board a couple months ago by Trustee Kalani. We had some discussion. They give us a presentation, and I think tonight you're looking not for an action plan because this would be budgeted for 2015, 14, 15.
Well, it'd be up to the board. You could, if you wanted to join immediately, that would be a different course of
Probably
action.
go rated or something like that for membership.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't check into that. We could find out.
I only point out that there are some good comments made to Larry and I have had discussions about, who would be involved in it. You only get what you put into it, that kind of thing. The cost is fairly, I don't want to say insignificant because no tax dollar is insignificant, but when you look at it compared to what we contribute to, say, Iron Harbor Spark, it's I think probably it's extremely affordable. The other thing I would just suggest that the board consider is these, one of the things that the Road and Pathways Task Force had looked at was hoping to utilize, if we did go to a millage, we looked at pathways and the discussions and with the public sort of said, we want just to deal with the road. So pathways were going to be left to the township to kind of look at and how we might address pathways out of our general fund. SEMCOG has the availability of grants and other resources that we might be able to tap into to assist us in that Pathways program. And I didn't know that before they actually came here and gave that presentation. But it seems to me that there was an interest there to try and have some of that Pathway grant grant money get around to some of the other 7 or 8 counties that SEMCOG is part of, but I don't know if it's 7 or 8, I think it might be 6, but in any case. Those are my thoughts, and I don't think you can participate in that grant program unless you're a member. So, and I think it's, what, $1,600 a year?
Well, you can, they just have oversight. It would be better to be a member just to get their facilitation.
So those are my thoughts on it. I'd be glad to do what I can to participate and assist in some of those meetings that would benefit our community. But I think we need to re-explore that and look at how we might... I just think that there's a lot of good things happening in the metro region right now because of a lot of different factors, whether it be development, Detroit coming out of bankruptcy, the Regional Water Authority, SMART, and regional transportation. I'd rather, while it's not necessarily our mission, we talked a little bit about that, the mission's been sort of to associate ourselves more with Ann Arbor Spark, but I don't know if it really hurts if we're also part of SEMCOG. So those are my comments. It's up to the board what it might want to proceed on, but...
Well, of course, when I called Mike today about the ballot,
He asked
he asked what we were doing about it. And I told him my concern was, who's going to have time to go down to it? And, once again, he stressed that, you don't have to be as involved as he is. I mean, and he even says, he's the township representative.
You get voted in.
Right.
Yeah.
And you understand that better than anybody because you used to be that person. But, I mean, he's, I guess, the person that is probably going to more meetings than our representative would. He said, you go to the General Assembly,
Right.
you maybe have 3 meetings a year that you are expected to come to. What you do more than that is totally up to you. So, I mean, with Joe's willingness to be involved, I don't have anything. As he says, it's a modest amount, and it did kind of perk my interest when they brought up the grant opportunities when they were here a couple weeks ago as well.
Any other comments?
Just the only same point is that, it was the concern about staff time and the ability to fully participate in it, but with Joe's generosity of voluntary gifts time to participate in it, I think that relieves some of my concern about joining it.
Kathy or Matt, do you have any comments?
I'm neutral. I know the township was a member several years ago for the downturn in the economy, so there must have been some value recognized in the past. I'm not opposed to rejoining.
I have a question for Kathy. All the years that you were involved with it, what benefits did you see the township get?
Well, there are pages that we don't have access to right now, and I saw that. And we did have a voice. I was on the road committee. That's the part I chose to get involved in because we had such horrendous roads even back then. And we did have a voice because they talked about the dirt roads a lot, and that was where I thought we had the biggest input, because otherwise they talk a lot about infrastructure of Hamtramck and Detroit and things that, old infrastructures that need repair. And we were more of, we need to keep the road system going. And I mean, you don't have to go to a lot of meetings. And he's right, the General Assembly meetings you go to and you vote on the large area projects. And we get involved in what we think is important. And so, I mean, Joe, if you're going to offer to do that, you can look into what you think. Paul Tate is great, and he'll give you some insight.
Paul's there anymore.
He's not.
No,
He's not there anymore? Okay, well, even Amy, everybody, they'll help you with...
So, I mean, was there any really direct benefit from it?
No, there was no direct...
Because I don't mind, I'm kind of on the fence with this, but I'm leaning on the no side, only because And I know it's only $1,500 a year, but $1,500 can buy a couple of nice picnic tables or several benches for the park or something that we could use here. I just don't see where we're going to really get a direct benefit out of saying we belong to it. You know, you don't have to go to the meetings, but we're spending $1,500 a year to say we belong to it. So
Right.
that's my feeling on it.
Well, you know, the one thing that, so I was driving down US 23 a couple weeks ago, and I saw that new path that Green Oak put in along US 23. And, you know, nice path, you know, goes along there. I read the articles in the paper. They said they had, you know, people out there walking on it before it was even cooled and stuff like that. And so the thing that I started thinking about, you know, when they were talking about pathways, you know, if we could, you know, and it isn't next year, and it isn't 2 years, you know, but long-term, wouldn't our residents enjoy the opportunity of interconnection to, say, something like Kensington, having a pathway that would get them to Kensington and then into all the pathways that are there. And I see SEMCOG as an avenue of maybe exploring some of those partnerships and developing that plan, you know, along with, I mean, certainly we don't have any property that borders Kensington Park, so we couldn't do it all ourselves. It would have to be in consort with, you know, communities that border that park, and that alone, I think, is a worthwhile effort. And it isn't, like I say, it isn't something that's going to happen next year. It isn't something that's going to happen 2 years from now. But it seems to me like it should be in our long-term goals.
I understand that, Larry, but I also see that for several years where we were paying a fee and we had someone go there at just about every meeting she could attend, and she was at quite a few of those meetings, I don't see where we got any benefit out of it. I think that's a great thought, but I think, man, that's a long shot. We probably have enough money to build a road before anything like that would happen, but I don't know. I just don't know. I don't think I'm in favor of it.
Yeah, I think I'm like Matt. I could go either way.
And my 2 cents are, depends on how the vote turns out in another month. If the people are looking to support our roads and pathways, I think that's a sign that this would be something that fits. And if it doesn't pass, then I think it tells us that I can't imagine that SEMCOG is going to come out and pay for an entire stretch through Hartland to connect into something else. I think they're going to be looking for partnerships. So that would be I think, until we find out which way the vote goes on the road millage, is going to make a big determining factor of how viable this effort would be going through this program.
So can we hold off on the membership?
Well,
Whatever pleases the board.
what's a recommendation?
I mean, we have that option to do.
Of course, yeah. Right. We've held off this long.
And, you know, it's not going to be skin off my nose one way or the other, but I do just want to say that, you know, we should evaluate these things similarly. I bet you if you asked the question, has Hartland seen any direct benefit from spending $12,000 a year for Spark, the answer would probably be no as well. I mean, the benefit is not, you know, it's not a black and white measurable thing. So that's, you know.
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of things in our community that people would question how, you know, what the value is, and that is difficult, but they also provide tools. SEMCOG provides those tools to value certain things that occur in your community, and they provide the research, people who research that kind of information. Some would question.
Didn't Spark have, didn't they have something to do with the credit union moving their headquarters over on Spencer Road?
Yeah, they've been involved in a number of regional economic development issues, and that's the buy-in for Spark is regional, raising tide raises all ships. Yeah.
Right, because what that's going to do, in my opinion, is going to bring more people to our area that want to live here, and I think there will be a direct benefit to Hartland, even though it's in Brighton Township. I think there will be a direct benefit to Hartland from the standpoint of buying homes, building homes, wanting to live out this way. So I think the Spark has already demonstrated for our region a purpose to belong, and bringing things like that credit union main office is going to employ 200 to 300 people. That's a good size injection into the community, whether it's in Brighton Township or Hartland. To me, is
So you're talking about two different kinds of entities.
So you're looking for, well, we're talking about benefits to the community.
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is that SEMCOG isn't about economic, they're not an economic development entity.
Well, I realize that, but we're talking about the benefits. Larry brought up the point about what benefits is Stark and has Spark brought to the community, and I'm trying to point out that I think that we have indirectly, and that's more than what we've had with the years that we belonged to SEMCOG with Kathy being going there.
But you're comparing apples to oranges.
I'm not comparing apples to oranges.
Well,
I'm
that's
trying
your
to
opinion.
point out a benefit.
It's your opinion.
Regardless of what type of benefit it is.
We're spending $12,000 belong to Spark. And a lot of our staff attends on it. James is on multiple committees, I believe, or at least one committee I know that he sits on. That's time away from the township. Has Ann Arbor Spark brought a business to our locale? Have they brought any development? No, they haven't.
Yes, they have.
No, they haven't.
Not to Hartland proper, but to the region. And then when you bring it to the region, you're going to benefit from that.
I'm just pointing out, Larry's not all that incorrect. There has not been any direct benefit. We haven't seen any new housing, and we haven't seen anybody move in here. We haven't had any new permits. So don't tell me that suddenly, because you have a new bank coming up, that we have all kinds of development coming on, and that's benefiting us. Don't compare apples to oranges.
I'm trying to tell you that we have the potential of getting some of that benefit. I haven't seen any of that potential with the benefits that are offered through SEMCOG. There you go.
Well, you haven't participated in it, so you don't know.
But Kathy has.
Well, and before me, we were in it like 20 years.
That's why I asked her the question.
But you're looking at SEMCOG as not an entity that drives economic development.
Joe, I'll talk to you after the meeting.
Well,
Okay, would everybody like to wait a month to see how the election turns out, make a decision then?
no,
Do you want
let's drop it. I mean, let's just drop it. I mean, it's no point.
Well, why? Why not listen to what Bill said?
Just drop it. We don't need to do it.
We'll table it till further agenda.
Obviously, there's some hostility towards it, so I'm not going to put towards it. I'm not going to spend any
Why
time
not
on
at
it.
least try to keep an open mind on it until the vote, and like Bill said?
Whatever you want to do.
We'll add it to a further future agenda. All right, let's move on to strategic plan draft objectives.
So this is not, by no means is this a finished or even a 50% strategic plan. Most of the meat, of course, is in the specific tasks in the timeline for the next 2 years. Before we get too far, we had a meeting, I wanted to take the opportunity to at least talk around these 15 objectives that my goal was to boil down our conversation from the retreat into these 15 objectives, 5 for each of the goal areas. It just worked out that way. That wasn't on purpose. The goal areas, quality of life, sustainability, community development, of course, those are the same goal areas from the previous strategic plan. The objectives are intentionally at a medium level. They're not very detailed or specific. It's just kind of taking a goal, defining it a little bit more to an objective, and then under those objectives we'll identify tasks over the next 1 to 2 years that will move the dial on each of these objectives, that will that we can look to say, 2 years from now, if we complete these tasks, we can reasonably say that we've made progress on that objective. So I offer this as just for feedback. Is there anything strikingly missing, anything that doesn't belong up there, anything that is missing the mark from our board retreat conversation before we spend too much time at a staff level bringing recommended tasks back to you?
This was part of our exercise that the admin meeting went through?
Yes, we started diving deeper into these, into what the tasks might look like.
So the one I wanted to bring up was, and I didn't see it on this 15 bullet point. It was one near the end when we talked about the cause and effect. If we build an amphitheater, what additional resources will be needed?
Oh, sure.
And I thought that was something that stuck out to me after that meeting, that we've got a lot of potential projects that coming down the road. And one of the line items that we talked about was the cause and effect of the things that we put in, and we have to be real careful. I believe that we look at, which one would that be?
I think it's the last bullet under sustainability.
Yeah, I've highlighted it up there.
Service excellence for current population and future growth. I mean, that's the one that I kind of thought touched.
Yeah, but we had a pretty fruitful discussion on that, I thought. We just got, before we embark on any major program, we want to make sure that it's sustainable. And that putting ourselves, build it, and then all of a sudden we've got to maintain it or run the program or whatever that may be.
And we're starting to see that with the parks. We'll definitely want to talk about that when we start getting into the tasks. What does that look like? How do we kind of make sure that's a part of the conversation, ongoing maintenance or sustainability of it? So if we're in agreement that we want to make sure it's part of the strategic plan, my hope is that that language is the starting point for that conversation, and then we need to drill down deeper into it.
And that broke up a whole different partnerships with the community, partnerships with service clubs, businesses, sponsorships, a whole host of things that we know that's out there, but it struck a chord with me that we can dream a lot, but we've got to be realistic that we're taking care of the foundation of what we have to do.
Sure. One of the things I might highlight based on the preliminary conversation we had at Administrative Committee, also with the directors, was maybe on the community development side, the attraction of unique retailers. A lot of the conversation around that has been, of course, well, how much of that do we control, or how much, are we any more expert than the developers who make a living, trying to make that happen. There is a small space there that we can enter into. It involves the use of consultants and spending some money, and communities do that type of thing. I just might offer that for a little bit of discussion here, is that, understanding that if we really want to try to have an influence over that, is that so important to us that we're prepared to invest in that? I'm not sure that was a part of the conversation. Yes, we can all agree it'd be nice to get ABC Retail or whoever, and we could do that. But is that so important to the priorities of the strategic plan that we would invest significant resources into that? I just throw it out there as, would we keep that on the plan if that were the case?
When you talk about significant resources, what kind of dollars you talking about?
Well, I mean, anytime you talk about consultants, you're talking in increments of $10,000 bills. $10,000, $20,000. Is that important to us? Communities do that. I know Fenton had invested in that type of a thing, and that helped them target certain tenants and people, and one of the end results of that was the Culvers, and where they built it up in Fenton. That was them using a consultant to do some public input. What are we missing? And going after them with some data and saying, hey, people want you here. and somebody saying yes to that.
Would that look similar to what we did with the housing element? Where
yeah.
they looked at demographics, what we currently have, what's around the area that we need?
With yes, a consultant would be doing market data, putting that together, kind of having a package ready for those people that you're targeting. There would be a lot more on the public input side. What are our residents wanting to see? Is it, a certain retailer that isn't, very close by or we think would be unique? Is there a need not being filled? Why is there, a community the size of Hartland, why don't we have a funeral home? That, things like that. Those, and then...
And a developer's going to listen to a consultant's?
Well...
I'm just trying to figure out the whole thing.
Yeah, it doesn't, I'm not here saying that that's the magic bullet that makes those things happen. Just because you use a consultant doesn't mean you get Hobby Lobby to come or whoever else you might want to be going after. It's just that sometimes that can grease the skids, and I think that's probably a fair statement, sometimes. I don't know that I've ever heard of communities that do that are batting 1,000 on, do they end up getting the return on investment? When city tax millage rates and DDAs are involved, they're probably getting their return on investment. For us, we probably can't measure that in our .8 mills, but,
Did they redevelop existing buildings in Fenton, or was it new construction?
Alders or something.
yeah, I can't,
I think it was a
they were
plus in high school.
a reuse of yes, yeah.
It's an existing building.
I don't know, or at least an existing piece, redevelopment, which is a big push, of course, in the city.
That just...
It's
a different animal
It
than
is.
what we're dealing with.
Well, downtown Fenton, though, they're putting in a brand-new 3-story building. They're bringing in more people.
Whether or not they use this approach, I couldn't tell you on that one.
Is this something that major developers would be involved with, too?
Well, they could potentially be. I haven't tried to vet this idea out. I just know anecdotally from other managers who've done this in other communities how that's kind of gone. Whether or not that's the right thing for us, I don't know. I'm just acknowledging, as I was going through these, that one was, if we're going to pursue that aggressively, there'd be some dollars involved, and I just didn't really know the temperature of the board of just how interested we were in pursuing that. And we can decide that later.
But on that whole same vein, isn't the first one fall into that same topic?
Not necessarily, because the strategies there, although limited, are probably a little more nuts and bolts. Take a look at our PD process. Is that right-sized? Is it streamlined? Can we make that better and make it easier to facilitate those developments? Take a look at, our light industrial architectural standards. That was an idea that was brought up. Look at our regulations in that space. There were some ideas that we do have more control over that we could look at.
Okay.
So, I know that Bill and my and Glenn's group mentioned unique retailers. I don't know if it was mentioned in the other group or not. Doesn't matter. But I know my thought on it was, that we were asked to envision 2 years out.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, yeah, that would be a nice thing to see, that we weren't just, the cookie cutter, services for just the immediate residents that maybe we were drawing people in. I never envisioned hiring consultants to try and sell that point, so, that wasn't what I envisioned, spending that kind of money,
That's what I'm asking, yeah.
but that's just me.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Just, if I remember correctly, when we were sitting with the developers at those meetings that we had earlier this year, there was a particular developer that told us there was a business, I'm not going to name names here, but the business, there was some negotiation trying to get them into town that fell through, and we talked about that business again, and what the developer said, if I remember correctly, was, have somebody at the township contact them and see if they would, have any more interest or still be interested in our community. So I guess what comes to mind with this discussion here is, is that a task that maybe, the planning director could look at some of these businesses that, the board might be interested in bringing in here and make direct contact with them as opposed to hiring a consultant to bring in. Is that a possibility?
Well, you're on point, because if we're not interested in investing in consultants, then the lowest hanging fruit to keep this part of the strategic plan is to have some discussions internally, including this group, about who are those retailers. Do we think we can represent residents? Maybe throw some things out on my mixer, do a little bit of collecting of that list of people ourselves, and then that's just a list that lives in the planning director's office, so that when he's talking with developers, can plant the seed on, just so you know, here's a couple of names that make our residents' ears itch. That'd be the no-frills way to do it.
Well, and couldn't you kind of try to develop a culture of being proactive when you see those opportunities or get mentioned? And I mean, maybe it isn't a consultant, but if somebody, starts asking questions, maybe you pick up the phone a little bit quicker and call them and try and encourage them to, look at the community or things like that. Not necessarily hiring consultants to do that for you, but, if somebody comes with an idea of, I know we've mentioned it before, up at Clyde Road in US 23, that we'd see as a benefit to the community rather than just sitting back and waiting for them. We try to encourage that. I mean that's the kind of thing I guess I'd be comfortable with, rather than spending big dollars to try and get some firm to come in and develop that.
Okay, well, I appreciate that feedback, and we did go a little bit into the weeds, but, otherwise, this 15 objectives at this level, is anything missing? What will be next is at our next meeting on the 21st, I expect to have a draft of those tasks that get into more details on each of these for us to look at, start chewing on. They'll definitely come into the conversation with the Joint Planning Commission meeting, and then in November, hopefully that's ready to finalize.
Any other questions or comments on the strategic plan? Being none, we'll move on to the board protocol manual review. I think in the actual manual itself, we said we'll review this every 2 years. Is that what if I recall that?
Yeah.
But it's been more than that, I think.
Fuzzy math, but yeah. We did put it in the strategic plan that we said this year the board would review it for relevance. No major discussion necessary tonight. Please do take the time to read through it if you haven't already. The one proposal is for the administrative committee maybe to take a first crack at some suggested revisions. If we do take that approach, now would be a good time for the board to provide some guidance to that task as to anything that you'd like them to take a special look at or consider adding, deleting, revising. Any thoughts on that? And if you have any, certainly you can submit those to me as well, and we can compile those.
What was your time frame on this, James?
Well,
by the end of the year?
Either November or December is when the strategic plan said we would do this exercise.
So the administrative, this will be another task for us to go through, and then we'll come back with any suggestions, and the board members have any, trustees have any opinions of change, just offer them. Fair enough? That's our end of our agenda this evening. Is there anything else? Anybody wants to
just ask Manager Wickman a question. Where are you with the budget? Have you started on that process?
We're just starting it. The strategic plan is really the first step, because that'll help drive what we put in the budget request. The budget timeline I sent out about a month ago, just kind of review. We've been using pretty much the same one for the last couple of years. We're doing revenue projections through the end of the year. Departments will be submitting their budget requests through the end of the year. We'll talk budget revenue projections in January, first meeting in January. We'll talk organizational review, second meeting in January. My recommended budget and work sessions will start in February.
And update just real quickly on the road ordinance. Is that still with the attorney?
Which ordinance?
Not sidewalk, I'm sorry, sidewalk.
Yeah, I just had a conference call today with the attorneys on the sidewalk and parks ordinance. Wanted to get those done first before they tackle the water and sewer.
Okay. If there's nothing else this evening, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Kalani, second by trustee Harper. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay.